What if I told you that trying to be loved is the fastest way to lose all your power? Stick with me till the end of this video, because you're gonna understand why the most influential people in the world choose respect over popularity. Over 500 years ago, Niccolo Machiavelli asked a question that still makes people uncomfortable today. Is it better to be feared or to be loved? His answer was brutal and honest. It would be ideal to be both. But since it's hard to combine these qualities, it's much safer to be feared than loved. When you have to pick one. Why? Because love depends on others. Fear depends on you. Let me explain something about human nature that's going to change your perspective. People love you as long as you're useful to them, as long as you meet their expectations, as long as you don't disappoint them. Love is conditional, it's volatile, it's fragile. You can spend years building relationships based on affection and lose everything in a single mistake, in a single crisis, in a single moment of vulnerability. Machiavelli saw this in the Italian courts. Princes loved by the people were betrayed overnight when circumstances changed. Why? Because people's love is based on their own advantage, not on your strength. Now, fear works differently. When people respect you because of your strength, your position, your ability to deliver consequences, that respect doesn't vanish just because you made a mistake. Fear is rooted in something deeper, in the perception that you can't be manipulated, that you have clear boundaries, that you don't need anyone's approval to exist. Listen up. Fear doesn't mean terror. It's not about abusing or intimidating people for no reason. It's about establishing that you're not someone who can be disrespected without consequence, that your words carry weight, that your decisions are final. Let's bring this to today's reality. In the corporate world, who's loved by everyone, the boss who never says no, who avoids conflict, who tries to please everybody. And what happens to that kind of leader? They get walked over, their decisions get questioned, their authority gets constantly tested. Now think about the leader who's respected. They might not be the most popular, but when they speak, people listen. When they decide, things happen. When they set a boundary, nobody crosses it. The difference? The second leader chose fear, respect over popularity. Here's the trap that destroys most people. You wake up every day worried about what others are going to think. You adapt your words, soften your opinions, avoid conflict at all costs. Why? Because you want to be loved, accepted, included. And what do you get from that? Nothing. You become invisible, disposable. Because when you don't stand for anything strong, people have no reason to respect you. Machiavelli understood this centuries ago. People don't respect unconditional kindness. They respect controlled strength. Let's clarify something crucial here. Being feared doesn't mean being hated. Machiavelli was very clear about this. You should be feared, but never hated. Why? Because hatred creates enemies who'll actively work against you. The right kind of fear is one that generates respect. People think twice before challenging you, not because you're cruel, but because you're firm, predictable in your consequences, consistent in your standards. You don't need to yell, you don't need to threaten, you just need to demonstrate through consistent actions that you're not someone who accepts disrespect. What about personal relationships? Same logic applies. Think about that friend everyone loves, but nobody respects. They're always available. Never say no, accept any kind of treatment. Everyone likes them. But when they need something, where are the people? Now think about the person who has clear boundaries, who doesn't accept being treated just anyway, who disappears when they're disrespected. That person might have fewer friends, but the friends they have are real, because their respect isn't negotiable. Here's the secret that few people understand. You can be feared and still be fair. In fact, you should be fair. Machiavelli said the prince should avoid taking the property and women of his subjects, because that generates hatred. Translating to today, you can be firm, set boundaries, demand respect, But you shouldn't be arbitrary. You shouldn't be unfair. You shouldn't attack without reason. Real power comes from being feared by those who challenge you and respected by those who observe your fairness. How do you identify someone who's mastered this principle? First, they don't explain their decisions to people who don't matter. They don't seek approval. They simply act. Second, they're not afraid of being alone. They know that temporary solitude is the price of integrity. Third, they don't react to provocations. They respond when necessary in a calculated and definitive way. Fourth, they don't apologize for being who they are. They don't shrink themselves to make others feel comfortable. And fifth, when they speak, the environment changes. Because everyone knows their words carry real weight. You know what's the biggest lie they sold you? That you can be loved by everyone. That if you're nice enough, flexible enough, understanding enough, everyone's gonna value you. That's fantasy. The truth is, the more you try to please everyone, the less you please yourself. And people sense that. They sense the lack of center, the lack of backbone, and unconsciously, they respect you less. Machiavelli saw this clearly. The princes who tried to be loved by all were the first to fall, because in the moment of crisis, nobody was really with them. So how do you start implementing this principle today? First, stop seeking approval. When you make a decision, don't go around explaining it to everyone. Decide and act. Second, establish clear boundaries. And when someone crosses those boundaries, act immediately. Don't threaten. Don't warn 3 times. Act. Third, be willing to be misunderstood. Not everyone's going to understand your stance, and that's okay. You don't need to be understood by everyone. Fourth, be consistent. Fear only works when people know you're not volatile, that you don't change your mind based on social pressure. And fifth, never, ever trade your self-respect for acceptance. The moment you do that, you lose both. When you really internalize this principle, something interesting happens. You stop wasting energy trying to be liked and start investing that energy in being excellent. You stop avoiding necessary conflicts and start embracing them as opportunities to establish who you are. You stop feeling bad when someone doesn't like you and start seeing it as natural filtering. And the most ironic part, when you stop seeking to be loved, you attract more genuine respect than you ever imagined. Here's the paradox that's going to blow your mind. The people who are most truly loved are those who don't need to be loved. Why? Because when you don't need others' love to validate your existence, you become someone rare, someone who can't be manipulated with affection, someone who doesn't change according to public opinion. And that rarity, that inner strength, is exactly what makes people deeply respect you and often truly love you. But that love comes as a consequence of your strength, not as a result of your weakness. Machiavelli wasn't teaching cruelty, he was teaching realism. The world doesn't reward weakness disguised as kindness. The world respects strength tempered with fairness. You can spend your whole life trying to be loved by everyone and end up respected by no one. Or you can choose to be respected first and let true love come from those who really matter. The choice has always been yours. But now you know which path leads to real power. If this video changed your perspective, drop a like and subscribe to the channel for more content on power, strategy, and applied psychology. And remember, being feared isn't about causing fear, it's about commanding respect. Use this knowledge wisely. See you in the next video.